Thank you, Will, for sitting down with me. I appreciate it.
Of course, man.
This, we were just talking about this. I haven't even formally, officially named the podcast yet, because my goal right now is not to mass produce and like go to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all this. It's to have compelling conversations with people that I know, people that I, have had interactions with, and people that I believe can share value with other people. So, obviously I moved into the office here. I got the opportunity to meet you. You run a company called The Educated Dieter. Sure. You're in fitness, you're in health, you're in nutrition. Those are all things that I love and all have been part of my life, even though my business is not part of them.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to sit down with you. And it's also really cool having a friend like you, because I get to sometimes get free coaching. I feel like I get to, I disguise it. I disguise it as conversation, but I really get to pick your brain. And man, you have a unique, in my opinion, you have a unique perspective on things. I mean, there's some traditional things, obviously, that you know and that you share, but you have a unique perspective. And one of the things that you were telling me the other day when we were having a conversation is when you originally, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but when you originally kind of started Educated Dieter, you either naturally gravitated here or you got to the point where you were looking into hormones and you were, trying to understand hormones more and the impact they have on our overall health and our fitness and everything, right? Yeah. And you kind of felt, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but you kind of felt at the time, maybe people that looked at you or maybe even people that followed you on social media or just in general, people that, fitness coaches or diet coaches that try to integrate or talk about hormones get shitted on a little bit. So first of all, why is that? And what urged you to go down that route?
Yeah, so I got into the space actually as a bodybuilder. So once I graduated from academia, I got a job at a Gold's Gym, and I started to embark in this journey of becoming the best personal trainer I could, right? And as I learned the things that I learned in college, I began to apply them inside of the gym. And what I noticed was that my clients were getting amazing results, right? And so it all kind of started from real life transformation, taking real science that I learned in academia and applying it to the human physiology to see what kind of effect could we get out of these people and could we actually create tremendous transformation. Yeah. And in light of doing that, I decided to compete in my very first natural bodybuilding show. So my whole career starts as a natural bodybuilder, right? And so with that being said, I have a different perspective than other bodybuilders that went into the compete in bodybuilding that were on anabolic steroids and performance enhancing drugs. So in the realm of natural bodybuilding, we understand that the human physiology can only take so much stress before it begins to down-regulate, right? Now, at the turn of COVID.
What does that mean? What do you mean it can only take so much stress before it begins to down-regulate? Are you talking about like the workload from actually being in the gym? Are you talking about psychological stress from work? Are you talking about relationships? Are you talking about like your nervous system being in overdrive? Are you talking about all of it?
It's all of it.
All of it,
right?
Okay.
So think about traditional things that individuals would do in the realm of physical improvement. Yeah. They're dieting excessively, they're overtraining, doing a lot of cardiovascular exercise, more than likely lack of sleep, overstress, and this can over the course of time, sometimes, I mean, that can cause adrenal problems. Yeah. But over the course of time, you begin to reach a phase where you're basically burning yourself out, right? And so I developed an understanding of what metabolic adaptation was because all my clients were bodybuilders. So we are trying to get to the most extreme levels of stage condition possible to turn professional. Now, because all my clients were natural, I had to learn the physiology in a different way than other coaches or other athletes had to learn the physiology because they had other tools that they could use, T3, testosterone, all these other drugs that they could implement
to alter
to
those
avoid the metabolic adaptation. But because we competed as naturals, we could not avoid the metabolic adaptation, right? So that basically led me to becoming a bodybuilding coach. I coached bodybuilders for the better half of about 8-9 years. I helped individuals win about 50, at the time, I think it's about 57 pro cards at this point in time. And then when COVID happened, they shut down every bodybuilding show. Like all the competitions were done. Yeah. The OCB, the IFPA, the NGA, the NPC, all the competitions were shut down. So I'm like, I'm a bodybuilding coach and all my clients need to compete. What the heck am I going to do? Right. And so the Educated Dieter was actually born out of a client talking to me on the phone. And she said, you know what you've done for me, Will? you've made me an educated dieter. And I was like, whoa, where'd that come from? And I'm like, that's going to be the business name, The Educated Dieter,
cool.
because at the
know.
time I was investing a lot of time into the people that I wanted to help, right? And so my ideology was, if I can teach them, they're not going to make the same mistakes next time when they hire somebody else. So then the slogan became, let me help you. Basically, I can be the last trainer you need, because I want to teach you so much you don't have to really hire anybody else. But that was the turning point, man, honestly, was when COVID happened, the bodybuilding shows shut down, and a lot of my athletes were already in their quote unquote off season. And so I began to talk about the hormonal downregulation of testosterone, low testosterone, hypothyroidism, the need for women in perimenopause to experiment with different modalities of coaching. And now it's becoming more, I guess, normalized now to actually talk about these things. Whereas back then, when you're like one of the first people to start to try to make a path,
sure,
a lot of people will crap on you. But ultimately, if you know that it's the best thing for your clients, you're going to keep marching forward, because eventually the circumstances or the people, they begin to mold kind of what you're doing if you happen to be a pioneer.
Well, and if you believe what you do as well,
100%,
right? If you're educated, right, no pun intended there, and you believe what you do, I think that naturally you just ignore all the criticism. I think the problem comes in when you kind of don't know what you're talking about and you decide to go down a path and then you get criticism. I think it's harder to continue on that path because you start to doubt yourself. But if you don't doubt yourself, you believe what you're doing, then you just whatever. This is part of
I stuck with the path because I could tangibly see the data in front of my face, right? So like we started to get blood panels back, and I'm like, these were your bloods before. We implemented this, and now your bloods are here. Look at the difference. And then you have the entire world saying calorie effing deficit is all that matters for fat loss. And to an extent, from a law of thermodynamics, I agree. But you can't unvalidate what I just created, which is a blood panel before, a blood panel after. You had hypothyroidism, you don't anymore. You had low testosterone, you don't anymore. You had all these specific health issues, type 2 diabetes, high insulin, whatever it was, high inflammation. We began to treat and cure pretty much all of those problems with a lot more general population clients. So when I say like we rebranded The Educated Dieter, the goal was to target more people that were more similar to like my family. So I don't come from a very healthy background. Everybody in my family had type 2 diabetes. They're all overweight. And so when I actually had the opportunity to learn more about functional medicine and how I could bridge the gap from traditional macronutrient evidence-based fat loss and building muscle coaching into functional medicine, dude, there was a bomb that just went off, and I'm like, holy crap, I've been missing this the whole time.
So, man, and I know there's a lot more to the story, but that's powerful what you just shared. The Educated Dieter, just for clarification, for someone that may listen to this, like, what do you do and what do you not do? Where does your competency line? Where do you draw that line? Like this is not what I feel comfortable with, but this is, if this type of person comes to me from this range to this range, I know for sure I can help them. I can help them get healthier, have more energy, feel better, look better.
Yeah. So The Educated Dieter is a nutritional coaching company. And what I like to say is that we are your health strategists. So from a strategy perspective, you have strategy, people in business, right? And they help you get from X to X. Our goal is to basically make sure that we can strategize an appropriate plan of action for you over the next 6 to 12 months to basically resolve any of the health complications that you may have. Now, we help people build muscle, lose body fat, improve their hormones, and feel better. In a very simple way to describe it, that is what we do. And it's myself and my team of coaches that service clients all around the world, from Hawaii all the way to Australia.
And the methods to do that are everything from the food that they eat to the supplements they take to the exercises to the way they sleep, everything. Anything that helps them get closer to that goal, you guys essentially, you advise them on.
Yeah, so we manage the accountability via Zoom calls, via email check-ins, via daily email communication if the client needs it. We will create any form of diet that the client specifically needs for them. We'll craft any type of training program to fit that person's lifestyle. We will make recommendations for supplementation, recommendations for cardio, pretty much recommendations for lifestyle, anything we need to do from a holistic perspective to get that person from feeling stuck where they are to get them to actually like not surviving, but thriving again.
So if you are not a bodybuilder and you're not trying to step on stage, you used the term, like you kind of transition to general population to be able to help.
Client.
Right. Like people like your family or, but going more specific, if you're an entrepreneur, because I see this all the time, I see entrepreneurs that are successful in business or they're having success in business and their health begins to suffer and their mental health, their physical health. It's happened to me. Right.
Yep.
What, I guess, just advice could you give or would you give people that are sacrificing their health for their job or for their business or for money, right? And they don't know another way, right? They're like, well, I know I got to grind and work hard to make money, and I know I got to put in a lot of hours, and I know, I mean, there's, you go listen to any motivational speech, Eric Thomas, all these people who I love all of them, Goggins, I love all these guys, right? But like, they're essentially telling people to sacrifice sleep, to sacrifice. I remember Eric Thomas has this famous speech where he said, like, he was giving kudos to Beyonce because at one point she hadn't ate or slept for 3 days when she was recording an album, right? The problem that I found with that, because at some point, like, that's what I did, and I believed that, and I would just go, grind, like, by any means necessary, I'm going to accomplish the thing that I want, even if I risk my health, right? And sometimes even if I risk my relationships. But it's easy to say that until it happens. Right. And then when it happens, guess what? You only care about your health, right? When I had, and you know about this, like we've talked about it, but when I had minor health scares, I didn't give a fuck about money. I didn't care about money. I didn't care about my business. I just wanted to make sure I was good, right? I was like, I'll get back to all that stuff when I'm healthy. So I guess what maybe like philosophical advice would you give those people? And then what tangible advice would you give those people on how can they still achieve the goals they want to achieve, but not kill themselves in the process?
Yeah. So I'm going to try to unpack this in a couple different segments, right? So first and foremost, I think that celebrating struggle, it's well accepted in our culture to celebrate the struggle, right?
Yeah, especially entrepreneurs.
Nobody really knows what happened behind the scenes. They only see you driving a nice car or maybe, having a lot of money or having some level of success, but nobody looks at the work you had to do to get there and be like, I really envy that hard work. No, they just see
they envy the result,
they envy the result, right? Yeah. So struggling, I understand what it's like to work hard, but at what cost, right? And if your health is the thing, is the cost that you're paying for success, I think that could potentially be looked at as a problem, right? Because eventually it's going to catch up to you. What I mean by that is, from a foundational perspective, if you're not sleeping well, or your circadian rhythm is off. And for those of you who don't understand what the circadian rhythm is, your body releases cortisol as an awakening response first thing in the morning when sunlight shines through the optic nerve of your eye and releases cortisol into your body, right? At the same token, when lights get dark at night, your body should, in theory, release a hormone called melatonin that actually helps you sleep throughout the night. And then you have an awakening response, cortisol, melatonin. But when you push yourself so much and you're up until all hours of the night, maybe you're only sleeping 3, 4, 5 hours or something like that, you can actually begin to flip-flop your circadian rhythm. So you can actually decrease the amount of melatonin that's released, because if you're shining lights on your face, that sends a signal to your physiology not to release your thyroid
Even if it's a computer screen, that's blue light.
Computer screen, 4K plasma, watching Netflix, whatever. It doesn't matter. Yeah. I just had a talk with a guy at the ballpark last night, and he's like, dude, I can't sleep. I'm like, what are you doing before bed? He's like, oh, I'm watching this specific show. I'm like, wouldn't you imagine that from a mental perspective, that's excitatory to watch that kind of stuff? Yeah. And he's like, well, yeah. And I'm like, what else are you doing? He's like, well, I drink a couple beers. Research actually states that if you drink alcohol before bed, it actually affects what's referred to as sleep latency. Yeah. Sleep latency is your eye's ability to not turn off. Yeah. Your brain does not turn off. It's excited the entire time. So while you may think you're sleeping after you drink alcohol, what you'll notice is that throughout the night, your eyes will kind of blink and flicker. And
so is this the same concept of like alcohol puts you to sleep, but it won't allow you to go into REM sleep?
You can't get into REM sleep.
You can't get into REM sleep.
So you're basically waking up with very poor sleep scores.
Yeah.
But the problem
even if some way you slept 8 hours because you drank alcohol, like that sleep is not equivalent to real deep REM sleep. It's not equal. So it's not just time.
Not
right?
equal. It's not just time. It's quality.
So people that think that they can push themselves right up till bed, work on the computer screen, have their brain, whether it's through entertainment or through work or anything that excites and engages you, and then just stop and lay in the bed and then for 8 hours sleep, they're wrong. You're saying like that the quality of their sleep is never going to be
I would definitely say the quality of their sleep is never going to be substantial enough to actually improve their health again.
Yeah. Okay.
So you really should ideally be working with. So in Ayurvedic medicine, they have a saying, basically, you want to live as the world kind of revolves,
sure.
right? Sun comes up, you wake up and you kick ass, right?
Yeah.
As the sun's beginning to set, now we're calming, we're relaxing ourselves, we're eliminating light, we're maybe doing things that are very calming, reading, talking to your wife, reading a book to your kids, like whatever that thing may be. Do something that actually relaxes you, and then you're excitatory in the morning. But the problem is in America is that so many people are so driven to achieve specific things that they are trying to be excitatory all day long, right? So you wake up, it's coffee. Middle of the day, it's a pre-workout. You get back into the office, it's a Monster. At the end of the day, more coffee, right? So then what you're actually doing is you're creating this stimulatory effect where your brain actually can never shut off or turn down.
So how do you, so if you are an entrepreneur and you're getting started and you're building a business and you want to quit your job or whatever it is, and you know it is going to take sacrifice and it's going to take significant hours and you are going to have to give up some things, like how would you tell that person to balance that? What can they,
I think a lot of it really boils down to like what you do the hours you're awake.
Yeah.
Like how much time are you actually wasting?
Yeah.
Right. And if you look at a lot of even people in my space, like fitness coaching entrepreneurs, look at their screen time on their phone. Yeah. They may not be posting content as much as they're on their phone.
Yeah.
A lot of people are content absorbers.
Yeah, they're almost.
But they're not content creators.
Yeah, and even the creators are still consuming a lot.
Most of the time, because like they want to check up on their stuff. They want to see how it's doing and stuff. But at the end of the day, if you're able to wake up, you set your intentions, you have your power list in the morning, you get your stuff done, you do your client management and all that kind of thing, I still think that you can create opportunities and gaps of time to really dive in and be successful, but still manage to get a good night's sleep at the end of the day. Yeah. Now, I address this from the perspective of, I wish I would have told myself this about 5 years ago. Yeah. So when COVID happened, dude, I was burning the candle at all the ends. Yeah. I burned myself completely out. So I went from 185 pounds up to like 210. So I gained a bunch of weight. It wasn't good weight. My blood sugar was so bad, I started to see spots in my eyes. And then also I was just really tired and fatigued all the time. But looking back, I created the recipe for disaster. So when I sat down one day and I'm like, I had just eaten a meal and my blood sugar started going crazy, because again, I have that family predisposition to have high blood sugar, and I started to see spots. I'm like, dude, I'm getting way too far gone.
Yeah, something's And
I mean, it was like, dude, I'm drinking Cafe Bustelo all day long. So I'm taking pre-workouts, energy drinks, everything.
Just to I
burned myself out. Yeah. So therefore now my adrenals were not producing cortisol in the morning the way that they were supposed to. And now all day I'm just relying on stims.
To keep yourself. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, okay. What I'm hearing is a couple things. One is you're saying the working hours that you're putting in, like one way to optimize that is to optimize that,
manage your time.
Like to actually be working on things like because a lot of us go to work and sit behind a computer and we work for 10 hours or 12 hours, but like the actual work that has an impact on a business and moving the needle forward is probably a fraction of that. So I heard that, but I also heard that the better you take care of your health and sleep, the more optimal or the better version of yourself will be. Therefore, you can have more of an impact in your business. So even like if you're at 100% energy and you're feeling great, maybe nobody's ever at 100%, but for an example, theoretically, you're at 100%, you're feeling great, and you go work an 8-hour day, you're going to be more impactful and effective than you would be if you are at 60% and you go work a 14-hour day, right?
Yeah.
So give me one thing really quick. So give me, knowing that, because I think I understand that and I think people can understand that, give me a wind down routine for an entrepreneur that doesn't know how to do that, because I know this is a problem with a lot of people. They don't know how to just stop, or the Netflix or the TV is actually the way that they stop themselves. They stop working, they go here. Give me an ideal wind down routine for an entrepreneur that is working their ass off, but that wants to get that optimal sleep.
Yeah, I think it's important to have specific start and stop times. Yeah. So what I mean by that, maybe you're working on a laptop or something, you open it and you close it, right? But the problem is with a lot of entrepreneurs is the screens are always on, right? So therefore you have to set an intentional time where, let's say for instance, even if you have kids, I think it's even more important. You've got kids, I've got 4, right? So it's even more important because when you're there at home, you need to be with your children, right? Now, granted, some people are willing to sacrifice their time with their kids. at this point in my life, I'm not willing to sacrifice that. So my time that I'm at the office has to be extremely intentional. When I get home from work, I kind of go through this little in the car prayer. Dear Lord, allow me to leave my business and my work at work. Allow me to enter my home, be a great husband and father for my children, not be on my phone, not be a distracted dad, but be a present dad. Hold them, hug them, kiss them. I love them, all that kind of stuff. So when I'm home, I try to be there with them. My wife always prepares an amazing meal for us to kind of end the day. And granted, we usually have sports 6:30, 7:30 at night. Like last night, we didn't get home till 9. But we got home, I fed my kids, right? We kind of turned the lights low. We're not blaring a bunch of lights. We're not watching TV. I sit all 3 of my kids on the couch because my wife is currently sick, and we start to read some books. Yeah. Not in super bright light, but just I had some lights on this side of the room, and we were sitting on the couch. And that's kind of like the wind down. As I start to read the books, my youngest, she's 6, she's like, okay, Daddy, I'm tired now. I think I'm going to go to bed. She tells me she's tired. Yeah. And granted, when I start to read these books, bro, I get tired from reading the books too. Yeah. So like, and then she's like, okay, Daddy, I love you. And she give me hugs. So she sleeps with my wife. So we kind of like co-sleep, right? Yeah. But either way, the lights are low. There's not anything like super energetic going on. There's not a bunch of lights shining anybody in the face. My wife, we used to do a little like 5-minute yoga kind of wind down thing, or maybe she'll light some candles or something to really set the mood. Then obviously with kids, sometimes you would have like a bath time or something, right? But all these things can be systematically
and no television at all. You guys don't do any
I try to avoid it within like the last 30 minutes before we're getting ready to put the kids to bed. And so like, again, from a perspective of like, go as the sun sets, right? Turn the lights down low, light some candles. Maybe you're having your last meal. Do something that brings you together. Read them something that calms them down. It's not excitatory. If any of my kids are ever having issues sleeping, sometimes I'll even do like a little bit of magnesium or melatonin before bed. Yeah. And then as I start to read the books, the vibe is chill. Maybe they just got out of a hot shower, and then they're ready to go to bed. So my youngest, she goes to bed, and then I take my other 2 and I tuck them in.
Yeah, gotcha. I've been following this Brian Johnson guy, not the goofy ass Liver King guy, the other Brian Johnson, the don't die guy, right? Yeah. And he says that he stops eating at 11 a.m., which is extreme, but he says that the reason that he does is because that digestion could impact sleep. I know it's probably hard with 4 kids and the life that you live, but do you take that into account before you're going to sleep?
Absolutely.
Do you try to stop eating at a certain point?
Remember when the Oura rings first came out?
Yeah, I got one. Yeah.
Sweet. Awesome. Yeah. So I actually had about a dozen female clients wearing Oura rings about 4 years ago. Yeah. And I tracked all their data. Yeah. It's like super nerding out about it.
Can they share that with you? Just out of curiosity, like if you're their coach, can they share that with you automatically?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's easy.
Fucking cool.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah.
And so I would look at all their data, and a few things I noticed. Number one was that when they ate really close to bed, their REM sleep sucked. Yeah. And then they woke up the next day not
What's really close? Like give me a time frame.
Well rested. Within an hour.
Within an hour of going to sleep. Okay, yeah.
It actually, so eating in and of itself is excitatory to a capacity, unless you happen to be somebody that's like riding an insulin wave and like the insulin knocks you out because you ate carbs before bed. Yeah. That's a bit different. But trying to get really good quality sleep, you actually want to avoid eating about 2 hours before bed. Okay. So if you happen to want to go to bed at 10 o'clock, you should probably stop eating around 7:30, 8 o'clock, somewhere around there. And what I noticed is that 2 hour window actually allowed them to easily drop their heart rate, get into REM sleep, and sleep really well. Yeah. And the following day, they woke up and their readiness scores were significantly improved versus when we said, hey, eat like right before bed. I want you to get like a Greek yogurt bowl, put your granola in there, all your stuff, eat it like 30 minutes before bed. Yeah. So she's like, okay. She'd eat it, but her metabolism and her heart rate would not reach a resting place for like 3 hours.
My Oura ring tells me that when I eat, and it'll suggest that. So it'll say like your heart rate took long to lower last night. Did you eat close to sleep?
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Or it asks like, did you do anything else? Yeah. Right.
I did want to mention one thing because I want to make sure that I don't pass this by, but you had said something like, if you're not getting good quality sleep, like can it affect your next day's performance? Absolutely, because research actually shows that even getting like 1 to 2 hours less of quality sleep the night before, you will wake up with a significant increase in your blood sugar, right? So think about if you have like insulin resistance, think about if you wake up and your blood sugar's 10 to 20 points higher than normal, you're going to have more cravings. You're probably going to feel like you have to drink more and more caffeine. You're probably going to snack on things to just bypass time because you can't focus.
Yeah.
So the importance of
Or
quality
is it harder
sleep,
to control your impulses too?
it is, absolutely. Yeah. The worse your sleep is, the harder it is to control the impulse the following day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is where a lot of people end up just, eating a bunch of crap, and then they're like, oh, what kind of cycle am I in now?
Yeah.
But they don't know how to fix it. And fixing it, I mean, it's very boring, but like you have to have a routine at night.
Yeah.
Now, granted, there are some people that have created tremendous businesses, but they've sacrificed their health in the process.
Absolutely.
But then you look at them and you're like, would I want to have all the money, or would I want my health to be that bad?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, is there a choice? And I think that there is a choice. Granted, you're not going to be able to burn 16, 18 hours of work in a day. You may only be able to do 12 hours of work, which if you can be successful with 12 hours of work, that's tremendous. You still want to make sure you can prioritize your family and your health. But like the amount of people that I've known that have reached a level of success and lost their families in the process, it's not okay.
There was two other things I want to ask you about. And I want to make sure that I respect your time. I know we only have a short amount of time today, but cognition, like I have had these moments of just extreme clarity where I'm just like, how, like that flow state or whatever. I'm like, how can I recapture this? Right. And I mean, I've taken like every supplement, every nootropic that's out there. Like literally I've taken every nootropic that's out there. And there's a couple of them that I really do feel make a difference, but you got to take them over a longer period of time. Another thing that I feel has had a really big impact is fasting. However, I don't have any science or biology behind this, but for me, it's always strange because the day that I'm fasting, I know a lot of people say, oh, I feel great when I'm not eating. I actually feel really terrible. I don't feel good while I'm fasting. The next day, after I break my fast, I eat a little something and then I fast the day before. I usually feel really good. Yeah. So I don't know if it's like a delayed effect or something, but my brain feels like it works better. Definitely when I lower my sugar or eliminate sugar, and I have to be conscious of carbs. Like I need to eat them because I lose weight very quickly. So I try to eat good carbs, but I do notice they slow me down a little bit, So I guess where I'm going with this is like, we can't all be optimal all the time, right? But like, is there any advice you have or things that you do to make sure your brain works better and your cognition and you're clear?
Yeah, 100%. So I'll address your case first. I think it's very like bio-individual to you.
I would love to hear,
right? Yeah. But like, there's a specific subset of human beings that are already very lean. They're already very insulin sensitive. Eating 400 grams of carbs per day, eating whatever you want, you're still insulin sensitive. When you fast, you probably actually go hypoglycemic. Okay. So in a hypoglycemic state, you don't feel good.
Yeah.
But
what's that mean? What's hypoglycemic?
Hypoglycemic is low blood sugar.
Okay. So your blood sugar drops.
It drops. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
But a normal
and the effects of that are a little fatigue, a little sluggish, can't really think, foggy.
It's going to be fatigue, sluggishness, a little bit of brain fog, even you can even develop a little bit of nausea if you do something stressful. Yeah. Right. But a normal human, which blood sugar is probably flowing in the 90s, 100s or something, right? If they fast, they feel fantastic. Yeah. Right. But why? Because they're actually improving insulin sensitivity as they're not eating food, because the metabolism continues to metabolize even though they're not eating. So their blood sugar may go from 90 to like 78 or 80 the following day. They wake up and they're like, oh my God, I feel amazing. Yeah. Well, why? Because you basically rebalanced your insulin and your blood sugar, right? But in your case, you have to stay well fed. Otherwise you go hypo.
So would you say someone like me should not fast at all, or what?
I think that there's merit with fasting, but for somebody that's in your position, I wouldn't say it's that much beneficial.
Because I also think about it not only from a performance standpoint, but for autophagy, right? Like anti-aging, like longevity. Like there's
there's merit to that. Yes.
Yeah, and my wife does two 24-hour fasts per week, every single week, and like never misses, And I think she does it for her own personal reasons, but we've read a little bit about autophagy, and it's like, I don't want to get older. I want to live longer.
With autophagy, fasting for 24 hours, can it happen in that time period? Absolutely. Yeah. But I think a lot of people don't understand that even with good quality resistance training, you're also in autophagy. Yeah. Right. With like any type of exercise. So with that being said, let me kind of circle back to like the normal human, because like most people are not walking around looking like that. Right. Yeah. When they fast, they feel significantly better because they're eliminating the brain fog. The brain fog is brought on by the insulin resistance or the inflammation. So when you fast, you're dropping inflammation, you're dropping blood sugar, and that creates a more stable environment from a cognition perspective. Yeah. Now, if you're looking to optimize your cognition, definition. There's a lot of products that I think can be very helpful. But I will tell you, it starts the night before. Okay, so it starts with a good night's sleep, making sure that you're not waking up with brain fog because you didn't sleep well because your blood sugar's high.
Yeah.
Okay, so lion's mane, alpha GPC, L-theanine, caffeine, like rocket fuel.
Yeah.
Like you wake up, if you have a good
much,
stack and you can just set the tone. If you have ADHD or something, put some headphones on, put some music on that kind of just makes you focus in. That can be tremendously helpful. So even like for me, because I have a tendency to get kind of squirrely, is I'll either listen to Baroque music, it's like classic opera, or I go to it's a specific hertz. It's like a white noise hertz.
Have you heard of binaural beats?
Yeah. Same stuff.
I do a bunch of different binaural beats. But
so if you can do that,
and it has an impact. It has a real impact.
Absolutely. Like, also, the other thing I say a lot of people undervalue is moving first thing in the morning. So in our workout that we just wrapped up, you were talking about like, hey, I wake up and I go for like a mile and a half run every morning. Think about how that sets the physiology up for a really good insulin sensitive day. But how many people wake up and exercise first? They wake up and stuff their face with carbs first, but they're already insulin resistant. So how does it even make any sense? So I think moving your body first thing in the morning, making sure that you're insulin sensitive, reducing inflammation. I think there's a lot to be said for that. But again, with what we do at The Educated Dieter, because you can take all these different ideas and concepts. They're all floating around in everybody's brain. They're like, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I do this?
Google,
you have no idea. So I think what we do is we do a really good job at systematizing everything. Like
for that specific person. Because that's the problem.
It's at that specific time.
Yeah, you can read about all this stuff, man, but it's like it's not applicable to everybody. Somebody recently said there is no such thing as general health foods. And I was like, that's a genius statement because it's like we think like protein's healthy or carnivore or kale or vegetables are healthy, but like everybody's physiology is different and people react to foods differently. So like what is healthy for you is not generally healthy for me as well. But we read about these diets like carnivore and then everybody jumps on the bandwagon and half the people are like, this is amazing, the best thing ever. And the other half are like, this is bullshit. It doesn't work. I feel bad without carbs. And it's because everybody's different. And I think that stresses the importance of having someone who truly understands human physiology and truly understands these things. And then like, especially if you're an entrepreneur and then paying them to be like, make me the best version of myself. There's one, so that's a testament to someone like you or anybody that's out there, why people need you. But there's one other thing that I wanted to ask you before, and hopefully we have enough time for you to answer this question. Are you gonna have enough time?
Yeah.
Okay. I hope I don't cross the line asking you this, but man, you are articulate, you're smart, you like, I always enjoy talking to you just because of the back and forth. But you have a stutter that you've had your entire life, right?
Sure.
You're born with this, right?
Well, it was trauma induced.
Okay.
So
can you tell me about that?
Yeah, sure. So, and this is something that like as a 39-year-old man now, I've had to really go back and do the hard work. You know what I'm saying? But as a young kid, I was 2.5 years old, and I watched my mom almost get killed in front of my face by my dad. And I saved my sister. She was 1.5 years, and I got her out of her crib, and I took her under the table in the kitchen, and I watched my mom and my dad fight. And at that point, I didn't know that was it until I went back and revisited it. So like a lot of people in business, they come to find out they have these like limitations and they have to go back and resolve them. Otherwise they'll never find the conclusion to it. You know what I mean? So I had to go back and I had to find peace in that. And I had to say, okay, well, what was good about this? What was bad about this? What did I learn about this? And dude, I just remember I was 2.5 years old, and I remember like, wow, I never want to be like that. Right. And so that kind of began to craft me.
Were you thinking your dad? You never wanted to be like your dad, right?
Right. And so after that, I developed, that was such a traumatic incident for me in my life that I developed a stutter. And I couldn't talk to anybody without just rambling over my words because my brain would basically just start going. My mouth couldn't keep up. And I was also very nervous and insecure because of what I had witnessed. You know what I'm saying? And it really didn't bother me much until I was probably going to like teenage years, because I started to play sports and I had to start actually communicating with other kids. Because up until that point, everybody was like, Will's just quiet. He's the shy guy. And it wasn't that I was shy. It was just the fact that I just didn't talk. Because when I did talk, I got made fun of. You know what I mean? And even now, still, it happens every now and then. But as I got more like advanced in sports and stuff, I realized I needed to communicate more. Got through college, really didn't have a problem with academia. And then what I noticed was when I started to actually like personal train people and coach people and all that kind of thing, talking and communicating became extremely important, right? So I was about 26 years old. I had just purchased our first home right over in Lutz. And I was like, man, I really got to get this together, because I started to be asked to come on podcast. People wanted to interview me.
You were like building your social media,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
you started
yeah.
building like you got a decent following on Instagram.
Yeah.
You
And,
post a lot. Like, yeah.
I started to get invited on podcasts, and I was still so nervous because my identity was, I'm the guy that stutters, right? And so as I started to go on these podcasts, I was just extremely nervous, bro. I was sweating everywhere and everything. And I said, I have to solve this problem. How am I going to solve this problem? And I just did my research. I'm like, how do you fix a stutter? And I got together like a log book of stuff that I could do. And I just began to do it. And one of the most powerful things that I began to do was I began to watch people on TV. And I started to watch their mouths move when they spoke, right? And I'm like, wow, when they say that word, their mouth moves different than me. Because if you go back to my YouTube videos from like 10 years ago, when I talk, my mouth barely moves. I'm just like, yeah. So people used to kind of say like, you're kind of monotone in your videos. I'm like, I don't know. It's just how I am, Yeah. And so I remember watching TV, and I'm like, wow, these people move their mouths in a different way than I do. So I watched them. And then every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'd go into the bathroom. I'd look myself in the mirror and I'd say, you don't stutter. You don't stutter. You don't stutter. You don't stutter. Your name is Will Grazione. You're the owner of You Don't Stutter. You don't stutter. And I just kept building this process where I could practice speaking, watching my mouth move. And then that's when I kind of developed more of a confidence with speaking. Yeah. But it was also me going out. So I like to fish. So I used to go out really late at night, and I'd go to the nearest bays, and I would sit there and I'd have conversations with God about the trauma, about the stutter, about me needing to develop my ability to speak and communicate articulately to get my message across. Because in the realm of exercise science and human physiology, it's like you can talk, but people just get lost. Yeah. Right? But it's like, how do we speak about such a topic and we keep people engaged with what we know and how we can help them? And I just started praying about it. Whenever I'd go, I'd just pray, and I'd be out there for hours, bro. And I'm just praying, but as I'm praying, I'm practicing talking. Yeah. When nobody could see me. Yeah. Besides him. Yeah. Right. And what I noticed was when I started to turn the cameras back on, I'm like, wow, this is better, right? Yeah. And then when I launched my own podcast, which is called Hey Coach Radio, the first 10 episodes absolutely trash.
They're supposed to.
I'm like, oh my God, I was so nervous and all that. But then once I got like 20, 30, 40 episodes in, I'm like, man, this is getting really easy to speak and communicate with other people. Because what I like to call podcasting now, because it's like speaking is so fun to me now because I grew up not talking at all. Yeah. So think about that. You grow up not talking, and then you find your voice, and then you begin to impact other people's lives with your voice. Yeah. That's tremendous, right? So as I was going on these podcasts, I considered podcasting intellectual ping pong. Ping pong, ping. Just going back and forth. Your ideas, my ideas, your ideas, my ideas. And it becomes such a valuable thing that we can speak the way that we do about what we're passionate about. And people can watch these videos and they can receive so much information from it. Yeah. So yes, grew up with a big stutter, but it was trauma induced. Yeah. And then I had to solve that problem as a man because I knew I was going to need my voice later on in life.
Yeah. That's amazing, man. I want to give you a different perspective. I want to give you my perspective because, and there's a reason I asked that question and I wanted you to share about that is because when I first met you here in our offices and we had conversations, I had met a lot of different people in here and a lot of smart people. And everybody in here is entrepreneurs. Yeah. Everybody's trying to build businesses. Yeah. We all can relate to each other. We all like having conversations. But I remembered you. And I mean that genuinely. You stood out to me. And it was because I actually didn't ask, you proactively shared it. I don't know if it was maybe like, hey, I just want to like throw this out there so that when it happens, it's not weird. We can just like have a conversation. Yeah. But you told me like, yeah. And to give context, I don't know if you remember, we were talking about social media. Okay. And you were saying, I have this this stutter that I've had to work to overcome so that I can post out on social media. For sure. But my perception, it was that it didn't take anything away from you. It actually, for me, like you used the word polarizing when we were talking in here the other day. I believe you used it when we were talking about people that blow up on social media. We were talking about like a couple people that blew up, and we're like, yeah, but they're very polarizing figures. In a way, it made you polarizing to me because I was like, here's this guy who knows his stuff. Like everybody can watch this and hear you're just spewing with information, things that you know that you're passionate about, right? And it flows naturally, and it's like I could sit here and listen and know you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So but that didn't take anything away from me. It actually made you slightly memorable. And it was, even though you didn't share the whole story you just shared, it was still like a powerful thing for me. I was like, and to quite frankly, it made you more likable to me. I was like, I like this guy because of that, because he's like overcome something, right? Or he's like dealing with this. Tom, Bilyeu from Impact Theory, he said something
very intelligent.
Yeah, very intelligent. I love him. But he said something, and Alex Hormozi repeated this. He was very self-conscious because he has big ears. He got big ass ears, right? Okay. And so he would post, when he started putting content on Instagram, online, on YouTube, people would make fun of him for his ears. And he would try to delete it, get defensive, all this stuff for like the first couple of years. And then afterwards, he was just like, I have big ears. So what? Like, yeah, cool. Yeah. Okay. Like, can we all accept this? Yeah. I'm going to keep posting content. Yep. I'm not, just because I have big ears, I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing. Like, he was like, this is silly for me to get defensive. Ultimately what he told himself is like, it's true. For sure. Like, it's true. So to give you a different perspective, like you've already overcome it because you can already share everything you just shared now. And right. Like you've already overcome it, but maybe just to give you a thought on this is you don't have to be William Grazione that doesn't have a stutter. You could be William Grazione that has a stutter, embraces it, understands, and can still be powerful and can still share things. And that actually can add to your character and add to your personality and make you more memorable, right? People are like, there's things about me that bother me. You know, I tell my wife all, like we all have insecurities, right? But I think one of the good things about getting older, because there's not a ton of things, but one of the good things about getting older is I'm more accepting of who I am, right? I'm more accepting of who I am. I know who I am. I'm confident in who I am, the good and the bad. I'm honest with myself. I'm honest with people. Like I don't lie about the person I am. I don't try to make myself seem like I'm somebody I'm not. I just accept where I am now, but I love self-improvement. So of course I'm always trying to get better and change, you know? So just to give you a different perspective on that, man, I think it's actually a superpower of yours, as crazy as that sounds. And I'm not saying that to be cliche or corny. Like it's that's how I feel.
I want to say I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Cause I think oftentimes we need an external perspective. So it just kind of shifts our perspective about ourselves. But a speech therapist that I had once told me the same thing. She said, have you ever thought about like when you do public speaking engagements, just jump up there and say, my name's William and sometimes I stutter. And I was like,
just fucking own it.
No,
man.
never. I've never thought about it. She's like, well, just try it one day, you know? And I'm like, okay.
Because think about it, man, rather than me trying to hide something about me, you know, it's like when I was doing coaching calls for a while, I remember when I would get asked a question that I didn't fully have the answer to, I would try my hardest to give an answer. And after I would give that answer, and this wasn't like I was trying to lie, but I felt an obligation to the people that were asking to give them an answer. So I would try my hardest to give them an answer, right? And every time after I gave that answer, I would be like, I don't feel good about that. Why did I give that answer? Because I didn't fully understand. So something that I have committed to myself, and I'm not perfect, but I try, is I just tell people I don't have the answer, right? It's like, I don't have to have all the answers. Like whether I'm a coach, a consultant, whether somebody pays me for information, that doesn't mean like, and also before I would lead somebody down the wrong path, I would rather say, I don't know, I don't have the answer, but why don't both of us go look into this and figure it out and then come back and reconvene and talk about this, right? It's like, I think a lot of people, as soon as they label themselves as, you know, a speaker, an Instagram person, a coach, a consultant, whatever, it's like, I can't have this stutter that comes along with it. That's not who I am. And it's like, you can, and you could just own it. Like, like me, I could not have all the answers and still be a really valuable person to people and still help them a lot, you know? So, absolutely. But I heard that story about Tom and I was like, okay, I could apply that in a lot of different ways. You know, I could just own my shit, man.
Well, I think a lot of people allow those things to stop them. Right. But like,
and you obviously have
in your story, my story, Tom's story, and really anybody else that has these types of things, you know, too many people allow the things that they're insecure about to stop them from taking action. I just that was never an option. My whole life has been overcome everything, right? It's like an underdog story, right? But if you address it for what it is, go through your acceptance, you love yourself through it, and you can work to improve upon it, doesn't mean that, you necessarily have to feel bad about it, but you can accept it. And I think that's part of when I was working with a speech therapist, part of our work together was accepting that it's going to happen every now and then.
Yeah.
But when it does happen, doesn't mean you have to beat yourself up about it.
Well, and I also think that you can accept it, but still work to improve it. Right.
Sure.
So I think like that could maybe be a problem with what I said. Like you've in my mind, you've already done the work. Like you already are very articulate. So it's like at this point in your life, you just accept it. Right. Now, if it was 10 years ago, maybe it wouldn't be healthy for you to accept it, because then maybe you would say, well, I don't need to do the work, right? But you've done a lot of the work.
I would also say back then, I didn't feel like I was as valuable of a human. For a lot of different reasons.
Yeah,
and that's
sure.
a whole other podcast episode, right?
Yeah, I get it. Me
but
too.
Like your value in terms of what you can do to help people, your value in terms of how good of a father you are, your value in terms of what you can bring to the world, and how many people's lives you can change. Back then, I hadn't impacted as many people's lives as I do now. So like the confidence that I have now with what I do.
Yeah, you have
way
proof
up here.
You have proof all over. You just look around and have proof, right?
So
absolutely, it's amazing. I'm gonna respect your time, so we're gonna wrap. This is not the last conversation we're having, man. For sure, we're gonna have another one. Thank you for the workout today, man. I appreciate you, brother.
I appreciate you.